Hey everybody, welcome to the 1672 update. Dave Hatt, creator of 1672. Behind the video today is Ed Osling, co-creator and technical doodad guy of 1672.
I guess that's me.
Yeah, that'd be you. That's definitely you.
Yay!
Today is the catch-up wrap-up crazy stuff. For those of you that are in the playtest, this is a very important video. For those of you that are not in the playtest, you should get on the playtests and tell your friends. This video will contain lots of scattershot knowledge from all over the place, catch-ups, mends, things like that, as well as a brief on Stein, which is our next nation, and a little bit of how our rulebook is going to go together. So, let's get started. So, with everything, when we go through testing, everything needs to get tweaked every once in a while. We're getting some information back from our beta testers, I guess alpha testers, because, there's been enough changes to just still justify a bit of an alpha. Game is proceeding, don't get me wrong, but some of the schools are actually having some troubles adapting to each other. We wouldn't have known that without the actual thorough testing we've been getting from our group. So, I have new schools to replace some of the old schools.
New schools?
New schools, it's like noodles, only different. Alright, so our first school, number one, to get hit with a stick, is the priest from Rubizal. The Rubizali preacher had a bit of a problem at master level. His whole modus operandi was to create this pool and a tag on himself that he could add to with further actions, and then deplete to get rid of incoming attacks and increase soaks. The problem is at master, you're rolling like 10k5 to 10k7 to some cases bigger if you set it up right. Every action, that pool got big. That pool got game-breakingly huge. So, we have done away with that mechanic and come up with a very similar one. I guess you could say we haven't completely done with it, because it's still a pool, but now it's a bit more clipped. It's a bit more fast-paced. We wanted to make sure that we put a cap on the tag, but still have the opportunity that if the priest rolled really well with their divinity, that they can use it effectively. So, the priest now will create complex tags that have a value equal to his roll, and he can cash in the whole tag to add to a soak value or a defense in his zone. The reason why this is more important is because it puts more of a cap on it, and I've raised the TN of the tag's creation. So it's a bit harder, it's not reliable, it is actually a roll of the dice. Hey, baby Jeebus, are you going to help me today? Maybe. Signs point to try again later. Alright, but the big trick is that the priest also had big issues with his clock. The original priest was way too slow. He had to do a thing, and then he had to tag an opponent, and then he had to build a pool, and then he had to go to town on them, and then he had the guy was out the entire combat just doing support setup, not even full support. We changed that for the pool priest, which is the one we just replaced, and it was way too good at master. So it's alright, it's apprentice, it's cool at journeyman, and broke his dicks at broke it all the things at master. This new system will mean that you have to burn his uses, but they're easier to get. There are things like making the tag as a complex, but using it as an interrupt, and a journeyman and master, the school's going to give you free interrupts to use your school abilities tag. It's cool. That's the priests. The next one up is the Tufana Raja. The Tufana Raja got a bit of a tweak. It's different enough that it's worth noting. Tufan Raja also works similar to the priest. Pretty much the theme of this section is that we found three mechanics that were very similar. We reviewed them together. We used them to redefine the school a little bit. And this isn't a major change for the Tufi. Tufi still throws up the scene tag Stormfront, still uses that tag to drop boundaries and barriers on the scene itself, and then eventually either drowns or lightning bolts poor critters to death. The theme's the same, the mechanic is generally the same. The only thing that we've swapped out a little bit is the TNs of and how to utilize the tag. Alright, manager's on the floor eating a cookie, so forgive that. He'll pipe in every once in a while. But the Tufi's pretty much unchanged. He's got some mechanical nonsense. Back to Rubizal. Third school we changed is a Shadow. Again. We will one day nail down the Shadow, but in the meantime, we keep trying to find something that sticks. The problem with making the most powerful school in the game is that it's hard to balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we designed it originally to be the most uh, or the most powerful. It's just that it augments your traits.
Yeah.
It does horribly amazing stuff.
But our early design still said we wanted it to be more attractive than the other schools because of the drawback.
Right.
And we're still, after, what, a year and a half now, still trying to balance this thing. But it is try number 5,000,001 for the Shadow. Shadow will create the tags on themselves yet again, as opposed to last time, where they had to wait for triggers. But this time, what they do is they use the survival skill to create the tag Darkening. At their apprentice, they get 3 different casuals. One, when you create the tag with Darkening, it will also have a value, but now the school depletes the Darkening tag by using various abilities, and then when it burns out, they have to make it again. And every time they make the Darkening tag, they gain a corruption.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's a more regular corruption clock, where we were escalating the corruption before, and then we reversed it. This is a steady clock. The player gets to decide when and how they gain their corruption, and it's not on every action they do anymore. It's a choice to fuel their engine. It allows them, as casuals and apprentice, to increase their initiative, to increase their attack, and to increase their transit. To make it a little wild and crazy, these things deplete it by a D10 roll, which still explodes. So they don't really have a lot of control over how much it adds, but they can sometimes get away with murder on it too.
Mm-hmm.
So we're adding the concept of randomization as a way to try to balance the potential overpowered nature of the school.
It has a feel like a blackjack betting.
Yeah.
You know, the concept is you're getting this great power, but you're dealing with the risk that you're going to add more problems to the scene.
Right. And because it's wild and crazy, you can't be a precision surgeon with your initiative. A lot of initiative manipulation requires finesse. Well, not actually the trait, but it requires the concept finesse.
There should always be the fear that even if you use it once, it's going to be too much.
Yeah. The next trick, though, is that at Journeyman they'll get simple actions, and those simple actions will utilize the casual actions they got at Apprentice, and then the complex lets them add to the value as its big how to do. It still gives you a corruption, but it lets you maintain a more smooth flow over your corruption without interruption or spending actions to do it. Because at the master level, the complex comes in as a simple, so it doesn't interrupt your attacks, as opposed to having to create the tag again, which would have been a complex. That's it for Shadow. We're going to give that a shot. The next school is the Feldherr. We did a stress test. I've been mentioning it off and on. The stress test is almost at its end, and we have thoroughly determined that the Feldherr is a well-balanced school, which is very freaking unfortunate, because it is the biggest NPE we have yet designed. The problem with Feldherr has nothing to do with its output or what it was, and we've even done some light tweaking to it over the course of the campaign to make it even more versatile, and we've done a wonderful job developing an NPC-based squad school. The problem is it takes too long to play. We had a table of 6 players at one point, and we might as well have had a table of 10. One player's, the Feldherr player, after streamlining the initiative and after streamlining how you use your followers and after streamlining everything else, we still clocked him at 20 to 25 minutes a turn. And we've been doing that since the beginning of the campaign, which means it's not a skill thing as much as a mechanics thing. We are going to be replacing Feldherr, and I will be probably keeping Feldherr for the villains section of the Game Master Guide, so that it can still exist, because it's a well-developed thing, and if players can't use it, perhaps it can be used for the other side. But now Feldherr is a mixed bag. Feldherr creates now one squad of 5 at threat 1 when it hits Apprentice, but then it gets these points that it uses to essentially put cheats and increase the threat and all that. You can add an additional skill. You can make it summonable or unsummonable a number of times per story. You can add members to it permanently. You can add a range increment to it, which with our new range rules means that instead of fixing its range value to a zone, giving penalties for being too short or too far, every time you purchase that one, it purchases an additional range increment. Meaning you don't have to worry about range penalties if you bought your 0, your 1, your 2, so on and
So
so
now
forth.
they can have short sword and long spear.
Yeah, that's exactly why we did it. So they have a variety of weapons. And then we have the new math for the NPCs so that their weapons are incorporated in their threat now as opposed to otherwise. Um, at and eventually they get something called tactician and assist. You can use yeah. You can use the squad to make a check to build a tag on the scene that aids people out their allies' attacks and their allies' ability to make martial tags. I'm being attacked by a small child. Please don't take note. The other thing they could do is assist. We very rarely use the assist mechanic because we very quickly discovered how distending it is to a specific deal. But when this particular case came up, we've realized we had an interesting opportunity to have a limited base dice pool be able to provide regular assistance. And we don't think it's broken yet. But that's what you guys are for. We gotta test it. At Journeyman and at Master, the threat of the squad will increase, and it gains minor abilities. Like at Journeyman, the squad will be able to soak for you. And at Master, the squad can add its entire dice pool to your role as the Master as long as you share a skill, the knack for the skill, and you spend a drama die. But then again, at Master, that would be adding 6 unkept and 3 kept dice to your roll, so we figure that's a good deal.
Yep, I pay that every day.
Right? Okay. Sorry, this section is going to be kind of long. 10 minutes of school so far and counting. We go to Bontilin for the next one. The Etsiva. This guy has been kind of weird for us. We've been wanting him to be a socialite and basically Sherlock Holmes. And I'm quickly coming to the realization that he could be Sir Sherlock Holmes to be a socialite. We've been trying to make the social skills work, but after like several discussions and mechanics hammer, it's like having 2 schools mashed into one and getting no benefits from either of them. So the final decision was to make the Etsiva a pure investigator, and then open the mechanics up enough that he can use his investigation abilities to be useful both in martial and in social combat. Of course, in martial combat, he's still not killing people, but he's modifying advantages and disadvantages. What I mean by all this is that the Etsiva has taken a half a tweak. We removed all the social half of the school, and we've doubled up the investigation. So when he goes into a scene, he's basically like playing Blue out of Magic the Gathering, or out of playing Freeze out of anything else for an MMO. This guy's a douche, because everything about his mechanics change, break, or... Boop, boop, boop. You okay, buddy?
Yeah, man.
Oh, buddy. Sorry, guys. Just
Yeah,
1
he
second.
bonked himself.
He did. Right there on the chair.
Yep, keep it up.
So,
Come here.
there you go, Mr. Ed. So, the big trick with the Etsiva is that he can make, he can break, and he can modify tags with so much ease, it's like butter slipping on a hot knife. He has drawbacks, though. He has to juggle, and that's his gamble. He has to juggle drama dice in order to start his train. Like an apprentice, he has to spend a drama dice to do a specific interaction with a tag, but when he burns it, he gets the ability to swap another tag in his zone. Later on, he has to spend another drama dice to essentially work with a tag and change its makeup. But at that same journeyman rank, he does not have to spend drama dice to interact with tags that have already been poked. Normally, everybody, for those of you who are getting caught up, when you create a tag on a scene, it's a narrative, cool jillywig, right? It's the curtains are there and the chandelier's over there. But the way the rules work in 72 is everybody it's got Spider-Man rule on it. Not everybody gets one. One person gets to tag it once for some sort of advantage or narrative outcome. After that, they have to start spending drama dice to even interact with it. The Etsiva Journeyman doesn't pay that cost at all. So once the Etsiva establishes a good couple tags in the scene, they're supposed to just destroy people with them, or solve the mystery, or unlock the door, or so on and so forth. But they get no martial prowess out of it and no social prowess out of it, so they have to be a pretty slick player. The good news is the school is written very simply. The bad news is it's not made for a new player anymore. We'll see how it works.
It sounds like you just provided them an opportunity to succeed instead of putting them on rails.
We'll talk about V in a second. Speaking on Bontillan, the Corbeau is going through some changes. I was going to present those Corbeau today, but the Corbeau is currently not a playable school. It will be soon. We're having a debate as to whether the Corbeau is stable in its current creation, including its theme. A lot of people have problems including Jack the Ripper as a hero in the game. So, I will put that up to debate. Please leave comments, give us a call, or email me at hatsgames@gmail with your answers on that. Because I want to know if a noble Jack the Ripper is something you'd be interested in. The Majid. The Majid got a cleanup, nothing major. Counts as a new school. You'll notice everything works pretty much the same. The only difference with Majid is he used to have to tag his friends. Now he tags himself and then interrupts to take his friends onto himself. It was an obvious change that we all saw coming, and, well, we finally got around to it. But that huge amount of information is for all the beta testers, people who want to be beta testers, and otherwise. It is a school update. It will be typed up and emailed to you at your request. It will not be put up publicly as usual, but it will be available to you by request. And if you're looking to start a group, those schools come with all 21 other schools now. Oh yeah, I forgot. Surprise everybody, we have 3 more schools we're introducing at the end of the week. They are not associated with a nation.
Who knew?
The sad part is none of them are pirate. You think we're missing something there?
Nah.
Well, we have the Corsair.
I think they're essential to the world.
Yeah, I guess so. But we have 21 schools, we have 6 nations, and all of that coming to all the new beta testers and everyone we're getting on board. So, keep that in mind. Give me an email, phone call, get a hold of us. Do it. The next part, that's still kind of on topic for updates to the beta testers and anybody who's interested, we have some minor clarifications to your rulebooks. Outside of the edited PDF that Nick has all made for us, we have new updates that are vital for it. Good news, they're small. They're not like huge concepts. Number 1, it does not matter where your initiative is, was, or will be. Each character can only activate once per combat or social combat round. That's it. So if you have a character that drops their initiative due to one of their new abilities in the Shadow School, or if you have a character that boosts initiative for some reason, it cannot activate twice in the same round. You must bottom it out before you go to the next one. But yes, the actual cheating is going up on the initiative above somebody to essentially get 2 actions to their 1. But in typical combat, we've been having 5 to 10 entities, so it gives you good advantage, but it's not broke as anything. The cons.
So that keeps you from rolling, 5 panache dice and getting 3 5s and using all of them in the 5.
No. What happened is because the initiative is rolled and then kept, just a standard roll and keep.
Oh,
thing.
okay. I'm on a previous edition.
Yeah. We gotta get you caught up on that anyway. You've been focusing on the wrong mechanics the right mechanics, but not all the mechanics. So, the thing that brought this up, Ed, was when we were talking to Tony, and he built the last iteration of Shadow, not the one I'm presenting this week.
Yeah.
And one of its abilities at Apprentice was after you do a dramatic wound to somebody, every round you automatically add a D10 to your initiative, which fueled its Journeyman, which was lose 20 initiative if possible to do a cool thing, which in his case was add 1k1 to damage. So Tony tried to act, I think, 3 times in one round.
Yep.
Yeah. We told him no and called him dumb, and then we fixed the rule. So everybody, activate once per round. Don't be Tony.
Yeah. By the way, that is the revision process. You're dumb. Cool. Let's fix this.
True. Next up, the concept of before and after. It's a bit of L5REs from our time playing in both the role-playing and card game for Legend of the Five Rings, but they're very, very important concepts. And in the role-playing sense outside of those games, a lot of people don't really grasp those concepts unless they're veteran role players, so we're making it clear in the rule book, whatever section needs it, that if something says before, it means immediately before whatever it's talking about. Same thing for after. It does not give you a long period of time of which you could do a thing. It does not give you an option to do a thing unless it says so specifically. If it happens, if you do a mechanic before you, like say, a good example, if you add a bonus to your die roll before you roll dice, you add it and then you roll dice. You don't add it and then, that was like cool, so you take another couple actions and you set it all up. It's the moment before you roll dice, you add it. The same thing with after. If you were to get a bonus or a penalty after, it comes immediately, not at the convenience of the GM or the players. This is necessary for basically stacking of effects. We don't really have a lot of it, meaning that there's only one casual interrupt per action, but several effects that we have created last for a period of time, and we had to clarify when they went off so that they wouldn't collide with any of the existing interrupts or casuals, and that's where the before and after thing really comes home. Okay, so going over real quick, our grand total types of actions that you can take have now improved. We have casuals. Casuals are essentially interrupts on your turn. You can take a casual to an action you are taking to enhance it in some way. A lot of examples of casuals are like the Delista, who casuals a bonus to their transit when they're moving. So they declare... Go figure. We're popular. So, the casual action happens after you declare the standard action, and power off. Okay, the casual action happens after you've declared the simple or complex action on your turn, does whatever modification, handles whatever dice rolls it needs, and then you continue with the action at hand. Some cases they'll say when they interrupt. Some will actually say after the action. But my phone's turned off and it's still beeping at me. This is awesome. So the casuals are once per action on your turn. Interrupts are casuals that you take not on your turn. They're a different name because they work differently. One, you can have one casual and one interrupt effect, one action. So one of each of those. Two, you can only take an interrupt when it's not your active turn. That limits how you can use interrupts. But generally, interrupts are like active defenses and moving around funny and enhancing skill bonuses or intercepting attacks for people. And they're interrupting an action as opposed to casually modifying it. After that, we've got our simples and complex. We've been over that. And then we have progressions, which we talked about, progression plots, this, all that. We finally found a way to present them in such a fashion that they're all just called progressions. You will still see some of the old terminology, but when we say, hey, make a progression roll, the rulebook will have all the information in place so that you can just make a progression roll. Cool. We have a new section on tags. I'll ask me for that in the email. That one's a little bit bigger than I lied about that one. That's pretty big.
I think it needs to be.
Yeah, it's and most of the original information is there. A lot of the new information was pointedly about tag interaction.
Since we have a new tester that actually hasn't roleplayed ever before, we're probably going to stick him on it to see if it makes sense.
True. Beyond that, the new base TNs for the game. A challenging action for an apprentice level character at 250 points is considered 15. You'll note that's 5 higher than we originally proposed. That's because we've rolled enough dice and we've seen enough abilities stacked together now that we believe the 15 is acceptable. The problem with this logic, is that there is a philosophy called Ving your character. One of our playtesters named V had created a 500-point character that has trouble hitting TN15. And we talked to him about that, but he did inform us that that was possible only because he did not like traits, and so only bought skills, and skills bought schools. And so we may incorporate in the player section advice on how to create characters, because if V can build that, then a new player can build that as well. So we'll work on the presentation for that. Any suggestions? Or again, give us the email. With the time as it is, I'm just going to go over the basics of Stein, and I owe you a video or podcast, so I'm sorry, but I'm running out of time in all actuality today. But Stein is the nation that was part of Bonteland, and they had a little bit of a tuffle last year, essentially, when the old Duke was assassinated by the Chevalier, which is a playable school out of Bonteland, who are dishonored and disgraced knights of Bonteland. The trouble comes in that nobody actually knows who killed the Duke, and the Duke's son, who now is Duke, believes that Chevalier and the Bonte government are both responsible. So he has declared independence, and his grand nation of Stein is, well, they've got lots of guns and soldiers, and they've got big cannons, and they've got all the height of technology and metallurgy and chemistry, and no food. Because they weren't the place to make food.
They live in the rocks.
They live in the Stein is which the nation was named after is an active volcano that they've built a castle around, and by active in the geological sense. The last time that went off was 1,500 years ago, but they tap into the building gases underneath it, and they take the time and mine some of the resources on it, as well as the iron-rich mountains around it. So the Stein is basically a beer stein-shaped hold that's a valley inside of a caldera that is rimmed with essentially castle parapet. Pretty nifty concept. Also the home of the Duke, the new one, anyway. There are 7 houses and 7 tribes. 7's our lucky number in Stein, and the big trick behind that is there's actually 8, but we'll go into that one when I get into my video, because there's 7 of everything. Don't listen to that 8th one, it's a bad one. We have paperwork that keeps my brain working. We have the supporters of the Duke. Note that they don't all support the Duke. He's brand new. The Verden. The Verden are basically, they're not just the good guys, but the problem is they support the Duke's cause of revenge. They don't support the Duke's war that he wants to make. House Rattan supports the Duke's war, but not his cause. Because House Rattan is normally responsible and borders Bonteland, so they see green fields across the big river, and they'd rather like those, but they couldn't give a crap about this upstart kid who's now supposedly their boss. We have House Zoufre. House Zoufre generally is just a pain in the butt. They support a war with Bonteland, but at the same time, they are traditionalists to the core, even to their own detriment. I agree. There's House Vertraven. House Vertraven generally just hates House Zoufre. That seems to be their job. Whatever. House Sparsamkeit. They are basically the closest thing that you can get to normal people according to modern day philosophy in the world. They're practical but not quite pragmatic. They have a good understanding of things, a logic of things. They like inventions. They do all kinds of interesting work socially. The problem is that they are also detractors from the war, because their opinion is that if we can't take care of ourselves, then we most certainly shouldn't be invading anybody. Well, problem for the Duke, anyway. Then there's Mirnite. House Mirnite is cautious. Yeah, that's pretty much all they are right now. I haven't finished them yet. And then House Unerstroken. House Unerstroken is strength. They are Crab Clan. They are big, strong, dumb brutes who big, dumb, strong, everything with dumb strongness because brutish. We didn't make them so plainly stereotypical on purpose. They just ended up having inspiration from the Mountain from Game of Thrones, the Crab Clan from Legend of the Five Rings. There's definitely a brain in there, but the easiest course is usually through the dead guy you just made. That's generally their shtick. As far as the rest of Stein, that's your brief, but your expanded Stein will come in probably through our next podcast coming up on Monday. So, thank you very much for your patience. Sorry for the gap in the 2 weeks. We actually have been busy, and we want to let you know we have not been idle. If you're interested in the beta test, please get a hold of us. If you're a GM, we have a packet for you. If you have players, we have a packet for them. If you are going to have a group, we are still working on putting the forum together due to some legal issues. I unfortunately... Yeah? Really? Due to some legal issues, I am having some tie-ups. Yeah. I'm having some tie-ups with my website management. So I will be probably hosting on a separate website and letting you all know. In the meantime, you can contact me directly at hatsgames@gmail.com. You can contact me on Facebook as Dave Hat or as Hats Games. Or if you want to, give me a call. All of my information's on the Hats Games website, and any of that can be used to contact me. Once you contact me, our team will contact you. Alright. Go ahead and start recruiting out. The Patreon's still going strong, so we could use a bit more for the art. And I do apologize. We have art. I just didn't bring it. I would have been like, hey, look, art! But I didn't bring it. Alright, we will show art as soon as I remember, because that was a dumb thing on my part. But, have a good time. The boss sounds like he's getting angry, so I better get to him. Peace out.
Wrestling me.
He's upside down.